Hi everybody, happy Thursday. Welcome to Thursday Truths. They're coming round thick and fast, aren't they? It doesn't feel like a week since I was on having my last rant. So this week I want to speak a little bit about natural, alternative, complementary medicine, remedies, whatever you want to call them. And specifically kind of building on a little bit about what I talked last week, but specifically about the main reason that people don't think that these work, or the main reason that they actually don't work when it comes to endometriosis. I think a lot of it is preconceived ideas in terms of natural remedies, and there's a reason for that as well. So we'll look at that, and we'll look at people's experiences with natural holistic therapies as well in terms of endometriosis today. So firstly, if you're watching live, feel free to ask questions and comments. Give me a like. If you're watching a replay, give me a hashtag replay, and ask any questions or comments that you want as well, and I will get back to it as soon as I can. So what do I mean by preconceptions? Well, the first thing to say is that I believe part of the problem is the world of natural, holistic, complementary medicines itself, because it is an unregulated industry, which is the first issue. So anybody can set up and call themselves a therapist, a healer, a specialist. There is no regulation in terms of the qualifications you need to have, the experience you need to have, and what you can call yourself. So the first barrier that people have to overcome, especially people who are new to the world of holistic therapy, is the first barrier that people have to overcome is actually finding a decent therapist in the first place. And that is fraught with issues. Now, there are, whilst it's an unregulated industry, there is voluntary regulation we can go through. So there are a big number, UK specific, there are a big number of bodies that don't seek to regulate, but seek to have a hallmark stamp on complementary natural alternative medicine. However, in my experience, now I've been doing this for 15 years now, and in my experience, these bodies aren't necessarily a kite mark of quality. So using my Reiki session, my Reiki qualifications as an example, I qualified in Reiki as the first treatment. This is where my journey all started, was with Reiki. I started off as a Reiki healer, as a Reiki therapist, and that's what my business looked like for the first couple of years that I was operating. And being conscientious and eager to prove that I was legit, I joined about 3 different federations to show that I had a kite mark of authenticity and that I offered good quality services. I'm not going to give any names. One was Reiki specific. The other 2 were generic alternative therapist federations, kite mark organisations. Now, bizarrely, I had level 2 Reiki for many years, and I wanted to move up to become a Reiki healer, a Reiki master teacher, so that I could begin to teach people different Reiki practices as well. So I wanted, my Reiki master had moved to New Zealand, so I needed a new Reiki master. So I went to the federation that I was a member of, because the school who I originally learnt through, who my original Reiki master was a member of, had fallen out with the Reiki. Oh, I nearly said the name, with this federation. And so the courses that they did were no longer recognised. So being diligent and authentic, I approached them to find a different master to learn my new qualification with. They actually told me, when I approached this master, who came with very high recommendations from this organisation, they told me that I would have to resit my level 2 Reiki, because obviously they no longer, even though it was recognised at the time, they no longer recognised my certification from the school of Reiki that I trained with. And so they sent me to another highly recommended person to redo my level 2. And it was the worst Reiki experience I'd ever had. This guy was inappropriate, he was creepy, he was absolutely horrible. He should not have been allowed to practice. But I did my level 2 with him because I needed to do it, and I reported back to this federation how my experiences, and I put in a formal complaint. And yeah, was met with a little degree of concern, but nothing major. And then I started speaking to this master in terms of sorting out my master qualification. And again, I was really disappointed with the level of training that this person had with their duty of care to their students. It was all about making money. They weren't bothered at all about the quality of the teaching they were giving, or about ongoing support to their students. So again, I wrote to this particular organisation. I emailed them and sort of said my concerns and how I wasn't happy with that teacher and how I would get a much better quality of teaching with the school I was originally at. And I got nothing back at all. So I made that decision then to forget about any accreditations with these voluntary organisations, because they weren't bothered about quality of teaching. In my experience, they were only bothered about getting money to be able to have that kite mark on your website. So since that point, I have not bothered with a Reiki specific accreditation. I had a similar experience with one of the big holistic therapy organisations, accreditation organisations, and again, they're not interested in actually understanding how you practice. They're not interested in understanding exactly what you do. I went to a hypnotist some years back who was accredited by the biggest federation, the Accreditation Federation, and the experience was horrendous again. So I stopped all my accreditations. So theoretically, looking at my website, you'll see that I have no accreditations, which in some people's mind will make me less of a therapist than other therapists. However, from personal experience, and I've done a lot of networking, I've met a lot of therapists, I've been to a lot of therapists and healers over the years, and they are not kite marks of quality. So if you're new to this world, if you're just finding your way, if you've heard that holistic therapies might be able to help you when you've got endometriosis or related conditions, and you want to find a natural therapist, then the natural thing to do is to look for these accreditations. However, in my experience, like I say, that is no guarantee of quality. Add to that the fact you can call yourself what you want with absolutely no boundaries at all. So you can be accredited by these organisations and you can call yourself an endometriosis specialist, yet you can actually have no understanding of the illness, you can have no experience of the illness, and it's not policed. It's not regulated at all. So if you're new to this world, if you're scared with your diagnosis, if you're looking for alternatives, and you go onto these accreditation websites, you find what you think is a recognised endometriosis specialist, and so you invest a lot of money and time, but perhaps even more important, hope in these people. So you start turning up for sessions and they can't help you. And the reason that I'm talking about this today is because actually I was in a sort of a networking environment and I came across somebody who called themselves an endometriosis specialist, and I was really happy because there aren't many of us out there. So I delved a little bit deeper into her and what she did, and actually she isn't an endometriosis specialist at all. She does what she does, and I'm sure she's very good at what she does, but she's just decided to call herself an endometriosis specialist with no evidence of why. She has no personal experience of endometriosis, and she has no experience of treating other people successfully with endometriosis, the root cause of endometriosis. Which brings me on to my second point. Quite often you will go to see a holistic therapist who understands how the body works, who understands the concepts of Eastern medicine, so who can look at your symptoms and help you with your symptoms. So if you go with endometriosis and you complain about the bloating, for example, you might go to see an acupuncture person, an acupuncturist who can help with the bloating. But if they don't have that fundamental experience and knowledge of endometriosis, then yes, they will help with the bloating. But as soon as you stop doing the acupuncture, that bloating will come back because you're not getting to the root cause of what's happening with your endometriosis. And therapists, I mean, I'm exactly the same. If somebody came to me with a condition I don't know anything about, then I would be able to treat the symptoms, but I may not be able to get to the root cause of that if I didn't understand the illness correctly. with endometriosis is so complex. There could be so many underlying issues going on that you really need to address to successfully overcome endometriosis. So if you're just going to somebody and they're looking at the bloating, now they may do a really thorough job on the bloating. They might understand exactly why the bloating is happening. They might really get to the crux of the bloating, but unless you get into the crux of the endometriosis, that bloating will come back. And it's the same with diet. Nutrition is such an important part of endometriosis. There are so many diets. We saw Paul and Flick last month do some talks on nutrition, and that forms a really integral part of my endometriosis protocol. But with endometriosis, you do the diet, your symptoms reduce, you may even have a period of symptom-free time, but you're still not getting to that root cause. You're still not getting to the bottom of what endometriosis is. So, you kind of wax lyrical maybe for the first few weeks about how fantastic this person's been, how fantastic this remedy is that you've tried, but then your symptoms start coming back because you've either run out of money. You can't keep going to see an acupuncturist or a dietitian or a nutritionist or whichever method you've picked up on. You can't keep going to see somebody like that every week for the rest of your life. I suppose you can if you have a lot of money, but it's a lot of money, it's a lot of energy, and it's a lot of hope and time to invest in one therapy. So you'll wax lyrical about how amazing this therapist is for a few weeks. Then you probably stop because things are feeling a lot better. And then as soon as you start to stop, your symptoms start coming back. Even worse, some people's expectations, because people like me bang on about how alternative therapies and natural remedies can work, they set their expectations way too high. So they think that, so taking acupuncture as an example, they think that they can go and have 1, maybe 2 sessions of acupuncture and they will leave skipping down the street without any physical or emotional symptoms at all. But again, that's unrealistic, and that probably is due to a lack of proper information about natural alternative medicine, because we're kind of, again, what I was saying last week, we're kind of silenced when we're talking about it. It is like whispering in the wind. So there's a lack of proper information out there. So people come to an acupuncturist or a Reiki healer or a dietitian and nutritionist and expect their endometriosis to be, in inverted commas, cured, or at least their symptoms to have gone within a couple of sessions. And it's exactly the same as taking tablets. You wouldn't just take one tablet and expect everything to be right. So there's an element of managing expectations there. So the biggest reason why natural alternative medicines don't work is A, the fact that you don't find the right therapist in the first place, which again is not a blame thing. It's very difficult to find good, qualified and experienced therapists out there, especially when it comes to issues like endometriosis and IBS and all the other stuff that comes with endo. So that's one of the problems. So the problem is who to trust, where to look, and how to find that quality therapist who can actually genuinely help you. And then the second bit is that realistic expectations need to be set. And we are kind of struggling with that message. Excuse me, we're struggling with both messages really, but we're struggling with that message in terms of letting people know how realistically natural medicines can work, because it does take time, it does take a lot of energy, it does take a lot of work. But if you're prepared for all of that, then you won't be disappointed. Your expectations will be met and you will be able to live without your symptoms reoccurring all the time. And if you have a decent therapist, they will also be able to teach you how to notice when a flare-up is imminent and to avoid flare-ups as well. So it can be done. The reason why it doesn't work is because there's too many people out there who think they can help everything when they're a therapist, and to some extent that we can. But with complex conditions like endometriosis, you really need to find somebody who is a genuine expert in endometriosis. So if you are looking for someone, well, ask me, because even if you don't want to work with me, I can find you somebody else who you can work with, who I would trust and I would recommend. Because although there's not many of us out there, there are people out there. So ask around. Don't be afraid to ask questions of the therapist when you speak to them. Book a free session, book a free call to talk through things and really listen to what they're saying. A genuine expert in endometriosis will be able to reassure you and give you that confidence that they can help with your problem. And again, if you're thinking of going somewhere else, again, absolutely fine. But if you do want some pointers in terms of questions to ask, let me know. I might even do a live on that next month in terms of what questions to ask to find a decent therapist. I hope that's been interesting. Any questions, please do give me a shout. I hope you have a fabulous rest of the week. Any questions, let me know. Friday, we're going to be celebrating things that have happened in your life this week that have just brightened things up a little bit for you. So don't be shy. Feel free to share all your wins tomorrow. And let's get some conversations going about how we can help endometriosis without all the surgical interventions. All right, thank you very much, guys. Enjoy the rest of your week. Have a lovely weekend, and I shall see you on the other side.